The first sound of Leo's day was not his alarm. It was the frantic thumping of his own heart. His eyes snapped open. A pale gray light filtered through the window. It was too bright. It was the light of being late. He rolled over and looked at his alarm clock. The digital numbers burned into his. Panic. 8:47 a.m. He was supposed to be at his desk at 9 o'clock. His stomach dropped like a stone. He had set the alarm. He was sure of it. He must have turned it off in his sleep. Again? No. He yelled at the empty room. He jumped out of bed, his feet getting tangled in the sheets. He almost fell onto the floor. He grabbed the first clothes he saw, a pair of wrinkled khaki pants and a slightly stained blue shirt. He did not notice the small ketchup spot on the collar. He pulled them on, not bothering with an iron. There was no time. He ran to the small kitchen, socks sliding on the wooden floor. He needed coffee. He needed the bitter black liquid to shock his system into something resembling a working human being. He grabbed the coffee tin. It was light. He shook it. Nothing. He pried off the lid. Empty. A few lonely brown grains clung to the bottom. He had forgotten to buy more. Of course he had. "This is a bad start," he muttered, throwing the empty tin into the sink. It clattered loudly, the only sharp sound in the quiet apartment. He looked for his wallet and keys. They were not on the small table by the door where he usually left them. His heart beat faster. He patted his pants pockets. Nothing. He ran back to his bedroom, his eyes scanning the mess. Clothes on a chair, a stack of books, a lonely sock. No wallet. Then he saw it. A small black leather corner peeking out from under his bed. He must have knocked it off the nightstand in his sleep. He snatched it up and shoved it into his back pocket. He found his keys on the floor next to the fridge. He had no idea how they got there. He ran out of his apartment, pulling the door shut with a bang. He pressed the button for the elevator. The little light didn't even turn on. He pressed it again, harder. Nothing. He looked to the side and saw a piece of paper taped to the wall. In messy handwriting, it said, "Out of order. Sorry for inconvenience." "You have got to be kidding me," Leo said, his voice a low groan. He lived on the 10th floor. There was nothing to do but take the stairs. He pushed open the heavy fire door and started down. The staircase was cold and smelled of damp concrete. His footsteps echoed loudly, a frantic rhythm matching his pulse. By the 5th floor, his legs were burning. By the 8th, he was gasping for air. He burst out of the building's main door, leaning against the brick wall, his chest heaving. And then he felt it. A cold drop of water on his forehead. Then another, and another. It was raining. A steady, dreary drizzle was falling from the sky. He had not brought an umbrella. He never checked the weather. He started to run towards the bus stop, 2 blocks away. The rain quickly soaked through his shirt and plastered his hair to his head. He felt cold and miserable. As he turned the corner, he saw it. Its bus. The number 42. It was pulling away from the curb, its red taillights glowing like mocking eyes in the gray rain. "No." "Wait," he shouted, waving his arms. He sprinted, his wet shoes slapping against the pavement. But the bus didn't even slow down. It just drove away, leaving him standing in a puddle that splashed dirty water up his legs. He had to wait 20 minutes for the next one. He stood under the thin plastic shelter, shivering. He watched the cars go by, their wipers swishing back and forth. Everyone else was dry. Everyone else was on their way to their normal lives. He felt like the only person in the world having a catastrophically bad day. Finally, the next bus arrived, hissing as it stopped. The doors folded open. Leo climbed the steps, dripping water onto the floor. He gave the bus driver an apologetic smile and reached for his wallet in his back pocket. It wasn't there. His smile vanished. He patted his back pockets. Nothing. He checked his front pockets. Only his keys. A cold dread, colder than the rain, washed over him. He thought back. He had picked it up from under his bed. He had held it in his hand. But then he had run out, distracted by the broken elevator. He must have put it down on the kitchen counter when he was looking for his keys. I forgot my wallet," he stammered to the bus driver, a large man with a tired face. The driver sighed a long, suffering sound. No pay, no ride, pal. You know the rules. But I'm already so late for work, Leo pleaded. I can pay you double tomorrow, I promise. The driver just shook his head and pointed a thumb towards the door. Off, Leo's face burned with humiliation. A few people on the bus were staring at him. He mumbled an apology and stumbled back down the steps onto the curb. The bus doors closed and pulled away, leaving him alone in the rain once more. He had no choice. He had to walk. It would take at least 30 minutes. His shoulders slumped. He started walking, head down, the rain soaking him to the skin. Cars splashed him as they passed. He didn't even bother to jump out of the way by the time he saw the glass doors of his office building. He looked like a drowned rat. His clothes were soaked and clinging to him. His hair was a mess, and he was shivering uncontrollably. He was 1 hour and 15 minutes late. He pushed through the doors into the bright, warm lobby. The receptionist, Brenda, looked up from her computer. Her eyes widened. "Oh, Leo," she said, her voice full of pity. "Ms. Gable has been asking for you. She's not happy." Leo's stomach twisted into a tight knot. Ms. Gable was his boss. She was a woman who valued order and punctuality above all else. He forced a weak smile for Brenda and walked towards the elevator, leaving a small puddle of water with every step. He didn't have to wait long. The elevator doors opened on his floor. And there she was. Ms. Gable was standing right there, as if she had been waiting for him. She was a tall, severe woman in a sharp black suit. She held a tablet in one hand and a steaming mug of coffee in the other. She looked at her watch, a delicate silver thing on her wrist. Then she slowly looked up at Leo, her eyes traveling from his wet head to his soggy shoes. "You are 1 hour and 16 minutes late, Leo," she said. Her voice was quiet and calm, which was always a bad sign. The words tumbled out of Leo's mouth in a rushed, panicked jumble. "I am so sorry, Ms. Gable. My alarm didn't go off. And then the elevator in my building was broken. I had to walk down 10 flights, and then it was raining and I missed my bus. And then I forgot my wallet and I had to walk all the way here and—" Ms. Gable held up a single hand. Her expression did not change. "Stop, Leo." Her voice was like ice. "I do not want to hear excuses. They are just noise. The result is that you were not at your desk when you were supposed to be. Please go to your desk. We will talk about this later." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply on the tile floor. Each click felt like a nail in the coffin of his professional reputation. Leo walked, squelching through the office. He felt everyone's eyes on him. He heard a few muffled laughs. He kept his gaze fixed on the floor, his face hot with shame. He finally reached his small gray cubicle. It was a mess, just like his life. Stacks of paper, old coffee cups, a sad-looking plant that was turning brown. It was a perfect reflection of how he felt inside. All he wanted was to sink into his chair and disappear. He sat down and immediately felt something wet, squishy beneath him. He jumped back up with a yelp and looked at the seat of his chair. There, smashed into the fabric, was a custard donut. A large blob of yellow custard was now smeared all over the back of his khaki pants. He must have left it there yesterday and forgotten about it. His coworker, Sam, peeked over the cubicle wall from the next desk. Sam had kind eyes and was always smiling. He took one look at Leo's horrified face and the custard stain on his pants. "Rough morning?" Sam asked, his voice gentle. Leo didn't have any words left. He just nodded, his shoulders slumping in complete and total defeat. He felt like he was going to cry. This was the worst day of his life. He was a walking disaster. He slowly, carefully sat back down in a clean part of his chair. He put his head in his hands and closed his eyes. He wished he could just go back to bed and start the whole day over. "This is the worst day ever," he whispered to himself. A few minutes later, he heard a soft click on his desk. He looked up. Sam was standing there, placing a tall, steaming paper cup in front of him. "Here," Sam said. "I got you a coffee. 2 sugars, just how you like it. You look like you need this." Leo looked at the coffee. He looked at Sam's friendly, concerned face. For the first time all day, a tiny, fragile warmth spread through his chest. It wasn't much. It didn't fix his ruined pants, or his lateness, or his angry boss. But it was a small act of kindness in a sea of awfulness. He managed a small, real smile. "Thanks, Sam," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are a good friend." He picked up the warm cup. The heat felt good on his cold hands. The day was still a catastrophe. But for this one moment, with a hot coffee and a friend who cared, it felt a little less like the end of the world. The rest of Leo's workday passed in a blur of quiet humiliation and custard-stained pants. He tried to focus on his computer screen, but the words swam in front of his eyes. Every time he shifted in his chair, he felt the sticky patch on his khakis. It was a constant, soggy reminder of his failure, Ms. Gable did not come to talk to him. This was worse. The waiting was a slow torture. Every time her footsteps echoed down the hallway, his heart jumped into his throat. But she always walked right past his cubicle without a glance. At 5 p.m. exactly, the office began to empty. Chairs rolled back, computers were shut down, and people called out cheerful good nights. Leo stayed put. He was afraid to leave. He was afraid that if he moved, the final piece of his terrible day would fall into place. And he would be fired. Sam stopped by on his way out. "Heading off, Leo? You gonna be okay?" "Yeah," Leo said, not looking up from his blank screen. "Just finishing up a few things." Sam nodded, understanding. "Hang in there. Tomorrow's a new day." Leo didn't believe him. Tomorrow would probably be just as bad. It would be a cascade of ever-worsening days, one after another. Until he was just a puddle of misfortune on the floor. Finally, when the office was almost silent, he heard the familiar, sharp click of heels. They stopped right at the entrance to his cubicle. Leo slowly looked up. Ms. Gable was standing there, her arms crossed. She looked at him, then at the custard stain on his chair, then back at his face. "My office, Leo, now." Her tone left no room for argument. He stood up, his legs feeling weak, and followed her down the hall to the corner office with the big window. She sat behind her large, perfectly clean desk and pointed to the chair in front of it. Leo sat, perching on the edge. "Leo," she began, steepling her fingers. "Your work is adequate. When you manage to turn it in, but your punctuality, your organization, your general state of being are not acceptable for this company." Leo looked down at his hands. He wanted to explain, to tell her about the alarm in the elevator and the rain. But he remembered her words from the morning. "They are just noise." He stayed silent. "This is your final warning," Ms. Gable said, her voice firm. "I need to see immediate and significant improvement. Is that clear?" Relief washed over him, so strong it made him dizzy. He wasn't fired. "Yes, Miss Gable, crystal clear. Thank you. It won't happen again." She gave a short, sharp nod. "See that it doesn't? You may go." Leo practically fled from her office. He didn't stop to get his things. He just walked out of the building into the cool evening air. The rain had stopped, but the city was still wet and shiny under the streetlights. He felt numb. He had been given a second chance, but the weight of it felt heavy on his shoulders. He didn't know how to be a different person. The walk home was long and quiet. His apartment building looked as tired as he felt. He trudged up the 10 flights of stairs, each step an effort. When he finally reached his door, he saw his elderly neighbor, Mr. Arthur, struggling with his own door. Mr. Arthur was a thin, stooped man with white hair. He was trying to fit his key into the lock while holding 2 heavy bags of groceries. One of the bags tore. A can of soup clattered onto the floor and rolled towards Leo. A box of pasta followed, spilling noodles all over the dirty hallway carpet. "Oh, bother," Mr. Arthur muttered, his shoulders slumping. Without even thinking, Leo bent down and picked up the can of soup. "Here, let me help you, Mr. Arthur." The old man looked up, surprised. "Oh, Leo, thank you, my boy. These plastic bags are useless." Leo gathered the spilled pasta as best he could and took the other intact bag from Mr. Arthur's hand. He then easily unlocked the door and held it open for him. Just set them on the kitchen table. Please, Mr. Arthur said, shuffling inside. His apartment smelled of old books and lemons. It was small but very tidy, the opposite of Leo's. Leo put the groceries down. He saw the can of soup was tomato. My mom always said tomato soup is the best for a bad day, he said without thinking. Mr. Arthur looked at him, his eyes wise and kind. Having one of those, are you? Leo let out a long, weary sigh. It all came pouring out. Not in a frantic, excuse-filled way like with Ms. Gable, but in a slow, sad river. He told him about the alarm, the empty coffee tin, the broken elevator, the rain, the missed bus, the forgotten wallet, the custard donut, and the final warning from his boss. Mr. Arthur listened quietly, nodding his head. When Leo finished, the old man gestured to a small worn sofa. Sit. I'll make us some tea. Soup can wait. Leo sat. He was too tired to argue. Mr. Arthur put a kettle on the stove and moved around his small kitchen with a slow, practiced ease. You know, Mr. Arthur said, his back to Leo, when I was a young man, I was a bit like you. My head was always in the clouds. I was late for my own wedding. Can you believe it? Leo almost smiled. Really? Oh, yes. My wife, Eleanor, she was ready to call the whole thing off. He chuckled softly. She was the organized one. She taught me how to show up for my own life. He brought over 2 steaming mugs of tea and handed one to Leo. She used to say, Arthur, you can't control the rain, but you can certainly remember an umbrella. Leo held the warm mug. The simple truth of the statement hit him. The rain wasn't the problem. His lack of an umbrella was, I don't know how to be different, Leo admitted. It feels like I'm stuck in a loop. Loops are meant to be broken, Mr. Arthur said. You don't have to change everything at once. Just one small thing. What's one small thing you can do tomorrow? Leo thought. The image of the empty coffee tin came to his mind. I could buy coffee tonight, so it's there in the morning. Mr. Arthur's face broke into a warm smile. There you go. That's a start. A very good start. Leo finished his tea and stood up. Thank you, Mr. Arthur, for the tea. And for listening. Anytime, Leo. Anytime. Leo went back to his own apartment. It felt darker and messier than Mr. Arthur's, but for the first time, it didn't feel hopeless. He didn't just collapse on the sofa. He went to the small whiteboard on his fridge, wiped away the old forgotten notes, and wrote in big letters, "Buy coffee." Then he went back out. The store was just around the corner. He bought a can of coffee, a box of granola bars for breakfast, and an umbrella. A small, compact black umbrella. When he got home, he put the coffee tin right in the middle of the counter where he couldn't miss it. He put his wallet and keys in the small basket by the door. He set his alarm on his phone and then set a backup alarm for 5 minutes later. He went to bed early. The room was dark and quiet. His mind was still racing, but it wasn't filled with panic. It was filled with a single, simple thought. You can't control the rain, but you can remember an umbrella. When he closed his eyes, the image wasn't of a missed bus or an angry boss. It was of a kind old man and a warm mug of tea. It was the smallest glimmer of light in his dark world, but for Leo, it was enough to hope by. Leo's alarm buzzed, a gentle but insistent sound. His eyes opened. For a moment, he felt the old familiar dread. Then he remembered. He had a plan. He got out of bed immediately before his brain could talk him into 5 more minutes. He walked to the kitchen, and there it was, the coffee tin right in the middle of the counter. A small victory. He made a pot of coffee. The rich, bitter smell filled the apartment. Smell of competence and preparation. He drank a cup while looking out the window. The sky was clear. He ate one of the granola bars. He checked the weather on his phone. Sunny all day. He still packed the new umbrella in his bag. Just in case, he thought. Hearing Mr. Arthur's voice in his head, he got dressed. Taking a moment to find a matching pair of socks, He checked his shirt collar for stains. He was ready with 10 minutes to spare. He picked up his wallet and keys from the basket by the door. New Habitant headed out. He pressed the elevator button out of habit, then remembered stairs. He sighed, but it wasn't the same defeated sigh from yesterday. It was just a fact. He started walking down. It was still 10 flights, but today he wasn't running in a panic. He took his time. He even felt his leg muscles getting a little stronger. He got to the bus stop with 3 minutes to spare. He stood there, breathing normally, watching the world go by. When the bus arrived, he had his wallet ready. He swiped his card, gave the driver a small nod, and found a seat. It was simple. It was easy. He had controlled what he could control. He arrived at the office 15 minutes early. Brenda, the receptionist, did a double take. "Leo, you're—" "Here I am," he said, and it felt good. He went to his desk. The custard stain on his chair was a dark, sad spot. He found a wet wipe in Sam's desk and scrubbed at it until it was just a faint, shadowy circle. He then spent 15 minutes tidying his cubicle. He threw away the old coffee cups, stacked the papers neatly, and gave the sad plant a little water. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. When Sam arrived, he whistled. "Look at this. A clean desk. Who are you, and what have you done with Leo?" Leo smiled. "Just trying something new." The workday began. Leo opened the project file he was supposed to be working on. It was a mess. Numbers and reports were scattered everywhere. The old Leo would have felt overwhelmed and started playing a game on his phone. The new Leo took a deep breath. He opened a new document and wrote at the top, "Step 1, organize client list." He worked on it, one step at a time. It was slow and his mind wandered, but he kept bringing it back. He finished the client list by lunch. It was a small thing, but it was done. In the afternoon, Ms. Gable walked by. She didn't stop, but her eyes scanned his cubicle. She saw the clean desk, the organized stacks of paper, and Leo actually working. Her expression didn't change, but she didn't scowl either. It was a neutral look, which was a massive improvement. After work, Leo felt a sense of accomplishment he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about the work itself. It was about following through on his plan. He had decided to do something, and he had done it. He was walking up the stairs to his apartment when he heard a faint call. "Leo, it was Mr. Arthur." His door was slightly ajar. Leo peeked in. "Mr. Arthur, everything okay?" The old man was sitting in his armchair, looking pale. "I'm a bit dizzy, my boy. I stood up too fast. Could you get me a glass of water?" A jolt of fear went through Leo. Mr. Arthur looked very small and fragile in the big chair. "Of course," Leo said, rushing to the kitchen. He brought back a glass of water and watched as Mr. Arthur's shaky hands took it and drank. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'll be all right in a moment. Just need to sit." "Have you eaten?" Leo asked. "Not yet." Without asking, Leo went back to the kitchen. He found the can of tomato soup he had dropped the day before. He heated it up on the stove, found some crackers, and brought it to Mr. Arthur on a tray. The old man's eyes were watery. "You didn't have to do that, Leo." "I know," Leo said. "But my mom was right. It's good for a bad day." He sat with Mr. Arthur until he had finished the soup and color started to return to his cheeks. They talked about small things, the weather, a bird Mr. Arthur had seen on his windowsill, the price of bread. It was peaceful. Before he left, Leo wrote his phone number on a piece of paper and put it by Mr. Arthur's phone. "If you feel dizzy again or you need anything, call me. Anytime." Mr. Arthur nodded, a grateful look in his eyes. "You're a good boy, Leo." Back in his own apartment, Leo realized something. For the entire evening, he hadn't thought about his own problems once. He had been focused on helping someone else, and it felt better than any small victory he'd had for himself. The next day, he repeated his routine. Coffee, granola bar, stairs, bus, work. He tackled step 2, review sales data. He made a mistake in his calculations. The old Leo would have tried to hide it or blame someone else. This Leo took a deep breath, walked over to Sam's desk, and showed him the error. "Hey, Sam, can you take a look at this? I think I messed up the formula here." Sam looked it over. "Yep, right here. Easy fix." He showed Leo what he did wrong. "Thanks," Leo said, feeling relieved. Taking responsibility was scary. But it was simpler than living with the fear of being caught. He was walking back to his desk when Ms. Gable approached him. He braced himself, "Leo," she said, holding out a small red flash drive. "I need you to compile the quarterly reports from the marketing team. All the data is on here. I need a summary by tomorrow afternoon." It wasn't a glamorous job. It was tedious, but it was new. It was a specific task given directly to him. "I'll get it done." "Ms. Gable," he said, taking the flash drive. She looked at him for a second longer than necessary, then gave a curt nod and walked away. Leo sat back at his now clean desk. The flash drive felt heavy in his hand. It was a test. He knew it. He looked at the sad plant on his desk. A new leaf, small and green, was unfurling from the center. It was a tiny thing, almost invisible. But it was there. He plugged in the flash drive and opened a new document. He typed, "Step 1, collect marketing files." He was still at the bottom of the mountain. But for the first time, he had started to climb. Asterisk, the quarterly reports were a monster. The flash drive was a mess of poorly named files and conflicting data. The old Leo would have felt a crushing sense of overwhelm. This Leo just started with step 1. He worked late that night, long after Sam and everyone else had gone home. The office was quiet, lit only by the glow of his computer screen. He created a clear folder system on his desktop. He renamed every file logically. He made a checklist. It was slow, methodical work, but he kept at it, fueled by cheap office coffee and a new sense of purpose. He didn't finish, but he made a solid dent. When he got home, he was tired, but it was a clean, honest tiredness. He checked on Mr. Arthur, who was feeling much better and was happily watching a nature documentary. The simple routine was starting to feel natural. The next morning, he was back at his desk early. He worked through his lunch break, munching on a granola bar while his eyes scanned columns of numbers. By early afternoon, he had compiled everything into a clear, concise summary document. He attached it to an email to Ms. Gable, his finger hovering over the send button for a moment before he clicked it. Done. 20 minutes later, she appeared at his cubicle. Her expression was unreadable. The summary, she said, it was adequate. Well, it wasn't a glowing compliment, but from Ms. Gable, adequate was like a standing ovation. Leo felt a surge of pride. "Thank you," he said. "I have another task," she continued. "A small one. We have a new client, Bloom and Petal, a local flower shop. They are small, but I see potential. I want you to be the lead on their account." Leo's heart stopped. "Lead me." "It's a trial," she said bluntly. "Your first presentation to them is in 2 weeks. Don't mess it up." She turned and left before he could respond. Leo sat in stunned silence. A lead, a real client, a presentation. Terror and excitement fought a war in his chest. Sam, who had overheard, popped his head over the cubicle wall, his eyes wide. A lead. "Leo, that's huge." "I'm going to mess it up," Leo whispered, his old instincts rushing back. "No, you're not," Sam said firmly. "You've got this, and I'll help you." Sam did. He helped Leo brainstorm ideas. He listened to him practice his pitch. For the first time, Leo and Sam weren't just coworkers who were friendly. They became a team. Leo learned that Sam was incredibly creative, full of ideas that Leo's logical mind would never have conceived. Meanwhile, Leo's friendship with Mr. Arthur deepened. He started having dinner with the old man once or twice a week. Mr. Arthur would tell stories about his life with Eleanor, about traveling the world, about failures and triumphs. Leo realized he was getting a crash course in life from a master. He learned about patience, about resilience, about showing up for the people you care about. The 2 weeks flew by in a blur of work and preparation. The day of the presentation arrived. Leo was nervous, but he was prepared. He had his notes, his slides were clean. And Sam had given him a thumbs dash up. He and Sam walked into the small conference room where the owners of Bloom and Petal, a young, enthusiastic couple, were waiting with Ms. Gable. Leo took a deep breath and began. It started well. His voice was clear. He explained the data. He presented the ideas he and Sam had developed. The clients were nodding, smiling. He was doing it. He was actually doing it then. Halfway through, Ms. Gable's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face went pale. She listened for a moment, then stood up. "I'm sorry, I have to take this. It's an emergency. Leo, continue." She rushed out of the room. The door clicked shut. The air went out of the room. Leo lost his train of thought. The clients looked confused. He fumbled with his notes, his heart hammering against his ribs. The old feeling of being an imposter, a mess, washed over him. He looked at Sam, who gave him an encouraging nod. He thought of Mr. Arthur's words. "You can't control the rain, but you can remember an umbrella." Ms. Gable leaving was the rain. He had to remember his umbrella. He took a sip of water. "My apologies," he said, his voice a little shaky but recovering. "Where was I? Ah, yes, your social media engagement." He pushed on. He finished the presentation, answered their questions as best he could, and shook their hands as they left, promising to be in touch. When they were gone, Leo slumped into a chair. He felt exhausted. He didn't know if he had succeeded or failed. Ms. Gable came back in. Her expression was grim. "That was the CEO," she said. "Our biggest competitor just launched a nearly identical product to our flagship brand at half the price. The entire company is in crisis." Leo's small presentation suddenly felt incredibly insignificant. The office descended into chaos. Emergency meetings were called. Panic was in the air. The old Leo would have hidden in his cubicle, hoping no one would notice him. The new Leo looked at Sam. "What can we do?" Leo asked. Sam's creative mind was already worried. "They've undercut us on price. We can't compete there. We have to change the conversation. Make it about something else. Quality, story. Something?" They spent the rest of the day and late into the night brainstorming, while the senior management argued in glass-walled rooms. They were just two junior employees, but they felt a duty to try at 10 p.m. Slumped over a notebook covered in scribbles. Leo had an idea. It was a risky, almost silly idea. He told Sam. Sam's tired eyes lit up. "Leo, that's it. That's brilliant. It's crazy, but it's brilliant." The next morning, they asked for 5 minutes with Miss Gable. She looked exhausted and skeptical, but she granted it. In her office, Leo, with Sam backing him up, pitched his wild idea. Instead of competing on price, they would launch a truth in advertising campaign. They would openly admit their product was more expensive, okay? And show exactly why: the better materials, the ethical manufacturing, the longer lifespan. They would make their higher price a badge of honor, sign of quality and conscience. Ms. Gable listened, her face impassive. When they finished, she was silent for a long time. "It's a huge risk," she said finally. "It could make us look arrogant. Or it could make us look honest and strong." She stood up. "I'm going to pitch it to the CEO. This is either going to save us or get us both fired." As they left her office, Leo's phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Arthur's number. But it wasn't from Mr. Arthur. It was from a neighbor. Mr. Arthur had fallen. He was okay, but he was on his way to the hospital. The storm at work was now a storm in his heart. His friend needed him. He went to Ms. Gable, explained the situation, and without hesitation, she told him to go. He ran out of the office. The biggest professional moment of his life hanging in the balance, and headed to the hospital. His mind focused only on one thing: being there for his friend. The hospital hallway was bright and smelled of antiseptic. Leo found Mr. Arthur in a curtained-off area in the emergency room. He looked small and pale in the big hospital bed. But he smiled weakly when he saw Leo. "Leo, my boy, you didn't have to come." "Course I did," Leo said, pulling up a chair. He felt a surge of protectiveness. "What happened?" "Just these old legs giving out on me," Mr. Arthur said. "I'm fine. Just a bruised ego and a sore hip." The doctor confirmed it was a minor fall. No broken bones. But they wanted to keep him for observation for a few hours. Leo stayed. He got Mr. Arthur water, talked to the nurses, and just sat with him. He told him about the company crisis and the risky idea he had pitched. Truth in advertising, Mr. Arthur mused. Eleanor would have liked that. She always valued honesty above all else. He patted Leo's hand. I'm proud of you. That took courage. While Mr. Arthur dozed off, Leo's phone buzzed. It was a text from Sam. Sam, CEO, loved IT. They're going with the plan. Gable says you're a hero. Where are you? Leo read the words, but they felt distant. The professional victory, which should have been the pinnacle of his new life, felt secondary. The real victory was sitting right here in an uncomfortable plastic chair, making sure his friend was okay. He had shown up. That was the real change. He texted Sam back. Leo, at the hospital with Mr. Arthur. He's okay. That's amazing news. Thank you for everything. A few hours later, Mr. Arthur was discharged. Leo took him home, got him settled in his armchair, and made sure he had everything he needed for the night. You've done enough. Leo, Mr. Arthur said, his eyes full of gratitude. Go home, get some rest. You've earned it. The next day at work was a whirlwind. The Truth campaign was launched. It was a huge gamble, but the public response was overwhelmingly positive. People appreciated the honesty. Sales, which had plummeted, began to stabilize and then slowly climb. The company had been saved Ms. Gable called Leo into her office. This time, she was smiling. It was a small, rare smile, but it was genuine. Leo, the work you and Sam did was exceptional. You showed initiative, creativity, and loyalty. The CEO has taken notice. She offered him a new position, junior project manager, with a raise and his own small team to lead. It was everything he had ever wanted, but had been too disorganized to even dream of. He accepted, of course, but the feeling was different than he expected. It was quiet pride, not loud celebration. The reward was nice, but the respect was better. Weeks turned into months. Leo thrived in his new role. He was still himself, but a more organized, reliable version. He kept his morning routine. He still had dinner with Mr. Arthur regularly. He and Sam became an even stronger team at work. One sunny Saturday morning, almost a year after his worst day ever, Leo was coming back from the corner store with a fresh bag of coffee. He was walking up the front steps of his building when he saw a young man, probably in his early 20s, having a full-blown meltdown on the sidewalk. His car was parked with a flat tire, and he was frantically searching through a messy trunk, throwing things left and right. I'm going to be late. I'm going to be fired. The young man was muttering to himself, his voice cracking with panic. Leo stopped and watched him. It was like looking into a mirror from the past. The desperation, the chaos, feeling that the world was conspiring against him. The young man looked up, his eyes wild. Do you have a jack? I can't find my jack. This is a disaster. Leo smiled a calm, easy smile. He walked over. Hey, he said, his voice steady. It's going to be okay. Let me help you. He reached into his own now organized car trunk and pulled out his tire jack and lug wrench. Here you go. It's not a disaster. It's just a flat tire. We'll have it changed in 10 minutes. The young man stared at him, his panic slowly receding into disbelief. You're just carrying that around. You can't control the rain, Leo said, getting down on one knee to position the jack. But you can remember an umbrella. The young man didn't understand the reference, but he understood the kindness. He watched as Leo, with practiced ease, changed the flat tire for him. Asterisk, when it was done, the young man was almost in tears with gratitude. Thank you. Seriously, you saved my life. You saved yourself by asking for help, Leo said, wiping his hands on a rag. That's the hardest part. He picked up his bag of coffee and walked towards his building, giving the young man a final wave. He didn't take the stairs. He pressed the button for the elevator. It had been fixed months ago. The doors slid open smoothly. He rode up to the 10th floor, the hum of the elevator a familiar sound. He walked into his clean, tidy apartment. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating the healthy green plant on his kitchen table. He made a pot of coffee, the rich smell filling the space. He poured a cup and stood by the window, looking out at the city. It was the same city, the same view. But he was not the same man. The worst day had been the first day of the rest of his life. He took a sip of coffee. It was going to be a good day. Asterisk if you enjoyed this story and want to join us for more. Hitting that subscribe button is the best way to make sure you don't miss the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.